Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd really appreciate your comment. It helps me understand if you enjoyed the story and how I can improve in future ones. I'm Brian Casewell, 40, a systems engineer out of Lexington, Kentucky. My Saturdays are predictable by design. Yard work before noon, gym if my back isn't complaining, then coffee on the deck while the game loads. That kind of rhythm kept life smooth, even when everything else got loud. Last Saturday followed the script right up until the moment it didn't. She came down the stairs a little too bright, ponytail tight, keys already in hand. "Hey, I'm heading to Mom's," she said, like it was an afterthought. "She needs help moving boxes into storage. Shouldn't be long." I was trimming fat off 2 ribeyes. I glanced up, nodded. "All good. Totally fine," she said, already halfway to the door. She just didn't want to bother you. The door closed on that sentence. It sounded harmless. It landed heavy. Here's why. Her mom, Margie, is 63, funny as hell, and the kind of woman who can out-bluff a room full of men without raising her voice. We'd been at her place the night before for poker. She wore her housecoat, talked trash, and beat me out of $40 with a full house I should have seen coming. She promised herself a lazy Saturday in pajamas, with a crossword and the noon game. I stayed where I was. Finished trimming the steaks, washed my hands, set the rub. I just stood in my kitchen and let that little story breathe. The wrongness wasn't loud. It was tidy, practiced, like a line she'd said in her head, then said out loud, hoping it would dissolve after it cleared the air. I poured coffee, took it out to the deck, and sat under the overhang while a thin wind combed the maple leaves. The house felt quieter than it should on a weekend. I didn't rush for answers. That's never helped me, at work or at home. If a server nags you with a warning light and you slam the restart button, you lose the log that told you what went wrong. I keep the log. At 1:30, I called Margie. She answered on the 3rd ring, same sing-song voice she always had when she knew she was about to make me laugh. "Brian, you coming to pay interest on my poker winnings?" "Not a chance," I said. "You good over there?" "Darlin', I haven't moved off this chair in 2 hours. I'm supervising the dog's nap." "Why?" "Thought you might need a hand today," I said. "Boxes." She let out that raspy chuckle. "Honey, I don't move boxes. I point at boxes and call nephews." "Where'd you hear that?" "Must have crossed wires," I said. "Enjoy the game." We chatted another minute. Weather, a casserole recipe she swore would change my life. Then hung up. I set my phone down face up on the table and watched clouds move like slow traffic. No anger. Just a click inside my head, like a latch that had been loose for months finally caught. I did 2 small things instead. First, I pulled a banker's box down from the garage shelf and set it just inside the mudroom. Second, I changed the emergency contact on my phone from her to my brother, a habit I'd been meaning to update anyway. Quiet signs. Nothing dramatic. If you plan to act, you don't announce it. You make room. Around 2:30 the house got too still, so I took a drive. Not aimless. I ended up where I knew I would, Margie's neighborhood. Her porch light wasn't on, no reason for it in daylight, but you could see the TV flicker from the front room. I parked across the street, walked up her short path, and knocked. "Speak of the devil," she said, opening the door with that half grin. "You here to lose another 40? "Thought I'd reclaim it," I said. "Got 20 minutes? "Kid, I got all afternoon." We played rummy at her kitchen table. Margie talked about a neighbor's remodel gone wrong, about a podiatrist she didn't trust, about a book club that had turned into a wine club by accident. She didn't ask why I was there. Moms understand the shape of a silence. She was kind enough not to poke at it. I took 2 photos while she refilled our glasses, cards on the table, her bulldog snoring under my chair. I slid them into the same mental folder where all the other small changes had been living lately. The late nights, working, that didn't smell like work. The edge in her voice when I asked if she'd be home for dinner. The way she kept her phone screen angled to catch the light, but not my eyes. None of it was a crime by itself. Together, it drew a map. We finished a 3rd hand and split a bowl of her 2 salty popcorn. She finally looked at me a beat longer than normal. "You okay, Brian?" "I'm fine," I said, and it was true in a way it hadn't been in months. Just needed a place where the conversation makes sense. She smiled, that soft kind that means she heard the part one didn't say. "Well, you came to the right porch. Take some chili home. You look like you've been eating emails." I left at 5 with a container of chili, and the kind of feeling you get when you've already decided something and your body is catching up to your brain. At a red light, I glanced at my phone out of habit. Nothing from my wife. No check-in. That silence used to make me nuts. Now it made the next steps clean. Back home, I set the chili in the fridge, tidied the counter, and wiped down the sink. It might sound strange, but order helps me think. I laid out the steaks, covered them, and slid them back into the fridge too. Then I stood in the mudroom, looked at the banker's box, and wrote her first name on the flap with a Sharpie. Just a label for something I could finally see clearly. At 6:24, my phone lit up. Just finished at Mom's. Heading home. No period. She always leaves it off when she wants the sentence to feel casual. Like we'd pick up our night where we left it, grill, movie, bed, repeat. I sat on the arm of the sofa and read that line 3 times. It wasn't complicated. It was perfect, in the way a short lie is perfect, all surface and no weight. It expected me to fill in the meaning. For years I had. I set the phone face down and listened to the house breathe. The AC kicked on. A car eased past the curb. Somewhere 2 streets over, a dog barked at the wrong shadow. I walked to the hall closet, pulled down her overnight bag, and set it next to the banker's box. Not packed, just visible. A statement to myself more than to her. I was done auditioning for the role of man who doesn't notice. I noticed. I was done trading my intuition for peace. Peace without truth isn't peace. It's quiet. By 6:45, I'd made one more small adjustment. I moved the framed photo from the foyer, the one from our second anniversary at Cumberland Falls, into the bottom drawer of the console table. I didn't want to look at a version of us that no longer existed when she walked back in. If she asked where it went, I could tell her the truth. I'm clearing surfaces. The garage door remote clicked at 7:08. Tires whispered up the drive. I felt steady, hungry even. The kind of clean hunger you get after a hard workout when you know exactly what your body needs and exactly what it doesn't. My phone buzzed once more before the door opened. Be there in 2. Want me to grab anything? Same tone. Same script. I let the message sit. I had everything I needed. Not screenshots for a group chat. Just a single line, practiced by her, weighed by me, and ready to do what it needed to do. She swore she was helping her mom move. Her mom had beaten me at cards and sent me home with chili. That was the last quiet minute of our old marriage. The next minute belonged to the truth. The garage door opens, and the kitchen fills with that cool night air it always drags in. I'm standing by the counter, phone face down, the banker's box and her overnight bag parked in plain view beside the mudroom bench. She steps in like she's jogging back onto a stage between scenes. Hair smoothed, jacket half-zipped, tone light. Traffic was a mess. Mom wore me out. I look at the bag, then at her. Which boxes? A half-beat. From the guest room. Old clothes. She wanted them in storage. Which storage? Another beat, thinner this time. You know, the one on Richmond. There isn't one on Richmond. I don't say that. I pick up the chili container from the fridge and set it on the counter between us. Her eyes drop to the masking tape label in Margie's handwriting. She exhales through her nose, small, like a tire giving up a whisper of air. You stopped by? All afternoon. I keep my voice even. Cards. She won. Twice. You were at my mom's. Not a question. An accounting entry. Her gaze slides to the bag again, then back to me. So you were checking up on me. I was visiting Margie. I lift the lid on the chili and take the first breath. She had the dog, the crossword, the noon game. No boxes. Silence expands like steam between us. She moves first, purse on the hook, shoes off, shoulders squared, as if a better version of the afternoon might arrive if she straightens her posture. The performance doesn't find an audience. She pivots to the sink, lets water run, stares into it like answers are hiding in the drain. I went earlier, she tries, softening the edges. Before you got there. What time? I ask calm. I called at 1:30. I was already on my way. Her sentence leans on the wrong verbs. And she forgot. You know how she is. She remembered the rummy score. I pull my phone closer with one finger, not flipping it over. She remembered the casserole recipe. She remembered to tell me to bring your favorite crackers next time. She didn't remember moving boxes. Her jaw tightens, then loosens. She shifts angles. Why are you interrogating me? I asked 2 questions, I say. You added the rest. Because you're lining up your cross-examination. Like one of your server logs. Ping. Trace. Blame. I prefer facts, I say. They don't drift. The faucet shuts off. She turns and leans against the counter opposite me, mirror posture, arms folded. That's when the phone on the island buzzes. Margie's name. I ignore the first vibration. It hums again, then a third, the familiar cadence that means her voicemail cut her off, and she's calling back. Answer it, she says, trying to sound bored. Put your witness on speaker. I tap accept. Hey, Margie. Tell me you found the crackers, she says, all honey and habit. They're under the dish towels, not behind the pasta. I got the chili, I say. Crackers tomorrow. Good. And tell my daughter she owes me 40 for folding on a straight. I glance up. Her eyes flare and flatten in the same second. I don't put it on speaker. I don't need the theater. I'll pass it along, I say. Night, Margie. Night, kiddo. Play nicer next time. The line clicks off. The quiet after is heavier than the noise before. She rubs her temples with 2 fingers, like she's massaging a headache she planned ahead of time. Okay, she says, looking past me, past the bag, to some blank patch of wall. I wasn't with her. I was helping a friend. She didn't want anyone to know. It's embarrassing. That's why I said, Mom. What's her name? I ask. You don't know her. What's her name? Another beat. Jess. Spell it. She does, but the word lands like a coin on carpet. No ring. No weight. She doesn't look up. You're making this bigger than it is, she says. It's one afternoon. I didn't rob a bank. No, I say. You withdrew from the truth. Her eyes snap to mine. Do you hear yourself? You're rehearsing lines. I had a quiet day, I say. The sentences had room to grow. She drops her arms, palms open. What do you want me to say? That I should have told you exactly where I was, every minute? That I should update you like a tracking number? That's not marriage. That's surveillance. I don't need a tracking number, I say. I need reality. And reality, she says, voice rising a notch, is that sometimes I don't want to explain every detail. Sometimes I want my own space without you taking it personal. You can have space, I say. You can't have fiction. She laughs once, sharp. You set a box out like a prop. What is that? Punishment? It's a label, I say, for what I'm willing to live with. You're not willing to live with what? Privacy? Lies, I say. She shakes her head, lets out a thin breath, paces 2 steps and back. This is exactly why I didn't tell you. Because you build these cases. You ask tight little questions until anything human starts to sound guilty. Anything honest doesn't, I say. She looks at the overnight bag again. The question that's been pacing behind her eyes finally steps into the room. Are you asking me to leave tonight? I'm asking you to stop talking like I'm dumb. I say. You can sleep in the guest room. We'll talk when your sentences don't require a stage. She blinks hard. Moisture collects without falling. She hates crying in front of me. Hates giving up leverage to biology. She steadies. So you get to be calm and I get to be, what? Hysterical. You get to choose, I say. Calm is available to both of us. She scoffs, fishes her phone from her purse, and types something with clean, practiced thumbs. The screen lights my face for a second. I don't ask who she's texting. 10 seconds later, my phone buzzes on the island. A mutual friend. Is everything okay? She says you're upset about a miscommunication. I put the phone back down. Don't drag other people in, I say. I didn't, she says. They asked. They always do, eventually, I say. They don't need the preview. She pushes off the counter, grabs a glass from the cabinet, fills it halfway. Drinks like water can rinse the taste out of a day. You know what? Fine. I shouldn't have said, Mom. I shouldn't have lied. I panicked. Panicked at what? Being judged. A flash of anger. You judge everything. How I spend Saturday. Who I see. How long I'm gone. I asked which boxes, I say. That's not what it meant, and you know it. It meant exactly that. She sets the glass down too gently. Another performance note. She wants the sound of restraint to stand in for restraint itself. So what now? You're going to keep poking holes until I admit to something that fits your map? You already admitted the map, I say. You just don't like the legend. She stares at me like she's trying to memorize the answer key to a test she didn't study for. If I tell you everything, do I get treated like a partner again? You get treated like someone telling the truth, I say. That's the only door I know. Her phone lights up, 3 messages stacked. She doesn't read them. She watches my face instead, waiting for a flinch that won't arrive. Finally, She lifts her chin like she's picking a weight off the floor. I was with someone, she says, barely above conversational. We talked. That's it. What's his name? I ask. Silence. Then, you don't know him. What's his name? A long breath. Evan. I nod once. A fact, finally. It arrives too late to matter and exactly on time to confirm the shape of the day. She waits for the explosion that doesn't come. I let the absence do its work. I'm not proud of lying, she says. I just needed to see something clearly. So did I say. Her eyes sweep the room. Bag. Box. The empty space where our anniversary photo used to live. She notices the hollow on the console table and understands more than she wants. You really planned this. I planned dinner, I say. The day planned itself. She picks up the overnight bag, unzips it halfway, then closes it again. A move without motion. Guest room then, she says, testing the syllables. We'll talk tomorrow. We'll talk when talking has value. I say. She walks down the hall, not fast. The guest room door clicks. The house exhales. I rinse the chili spoon, wipe the counter, turn off the overbright pendants above the island so only the soft can lights glow. The quiet isn't peace yet, but it's honest. I can work with honest. On the deck, the night is cooler than it should be for this time of year. The maple rustles like it's paging through something. I sit with that sound and the honest picture of a day that took off its costume. The phone buzzes again. Another friend, a question mark, a fishing line. I let it pass. Inside, a floorboard creaks in the guest room. Somewhere in that space, she's rewriting her script, testing new angles, burrowing for sympathy that isn't here. Tomorrow has a shape. It won't require a raised voice. It won't require an audience. It will require one sentence, and the weight of everything that led to it. For now, I let the night be the night. The lie unfolded on its own. I didn't have to pull. I only had to stop pretending I couldn't see it. I woke before the sun and let the house answer for itself. No TV or podcast, just the hum of the fridge and the soft tick of the thermostat. If last night had been about confirming what I already knew, this morning was about acting like a man who knew it. I brewed coffee, drank it black at the counter, and made 3 quiet moves I could live with. I pulled the banker's box into the kitchen and filled it with the basics. Wallets of photos that belonged to her. The ring box she kept in the drawer for safekeeping. The books that always migrated to her nightstand. I set her toiletries into the overnight bag she'd stared at and zipped it halfway. Then I logged into my banking app and removed an authorized user from one credit card. She patted in around 7. Hair up, eyes swollen from sleep she probably didn't get. She looked at the box, the bag, me. We're really doing theater? No theater, I said. Logistics. We should talk. I'm listening. She waited, expecting me to pitch questions she could swat at. When they didn't come, she tried the side entrance instead. I meant what I said last night. I'm not proud of lying. I needed space. You have it, I said. From you? She asked, searching my face for the old softness. From us, I said. She picked up the overnight bag, set it down, then picked it up again, like the weight would tell her the right answer if she gave it a chance. Are you ending this right now? I'm ending the performance, I said. The rest will follow. Her jaw worked. She tried one more angle. If we sit down, if I tell you the full story, will that matter? Truth always matters, I said. It doesn't always change outcomes. She studied me like I was a diagram she couldn't quite decode. You sound rehearsed. I've been saying this to myself for months, I said. Today's the first time I'm saying it out loud. She moved past me to the sink, ran water, shut it off, as if she could summon calm by toggling a faucet. I need a shower, she said. And coffee. And then we're going to talk like adults. Shower's yours, I said. I already had the coffee. When the door clicked behind her, I printed 2 pages, a list of the things that were hers ready by the door, and a time window that worked for both of us. I didn't add threats. Just the schedule and a polite note to text before she came by again after today. She came out dressed to leave, jeans, sweatshirt, sneakers she wore when she wanted to look uncomplicated. Where are you going? I asked. Drive, she said. Clear my head. Okay. You're not going to ask with who? I don't need a cast list. She opened her mouth to lob the next line, then shut it. Back soon, she said, and slipped out the door like she had an audience waiting who preferred brevity. The house felt bigger after she left, because everything had. I wiped the counter, stacked the printed pages on the island, and took Margie's chili back to the stove. The smell of cumin and tomato felt more honest than most conversations we'd had in a month. I ate standing up, then cleaned the pot and left it to dry. Quiet chores, clean mind. At 9:30, I drove to Margie's to return her container. She opened the door with a dish towel over her shoulder and a look I recognized. Curiosity with manners. "You come to deposit interest?" she said. "Returning the principal," I said, holding up the container. She let me in and put on coffee without asking if I wanted any. "You two okay?" "We're accurate," I said. "That's new." She nodded like that was an answer she could hold without squeezing. "Tell her I still want my 40. If I see her," I said. Margie didn't flinch. She poured, slid a mug across the table, and changed the subject to a neighbor's fence and a recipe she swore would fix a bad day. We talked about ordinary things until ordinary felt like a language we could both still speak. Then I stood, thanked her, and left. Some kindnesses are quiet. On the drive home, my phone pinged. A text from my wife. The kind of message you write when your hands are steady and your eyes are not. "I'm ready to talk. Where are you?" I didn't answer. 10 seconds later, the call came through, her name filling the screen like a headline. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, then swiped. "I'm coming back," she said. No greeting. A decision delivered as fact. "We'll sit down and you'll listen." "I've been listening," I said. "To me," she said, impatience sharpening the last word. "Not your conclusions." "Me." I looked at the road ahead, then at the rear view where my own eyes looked calmer than they had any right to. I thought of last night's simple lies, and Margie's simple truth, and the single clean sentence I'd been saving since the chili cooled. When you know the line, you don't add a paragraph. "Turns out you and your mom were in the same place yesterday," I said, voice steady. "But only one of you's coming back inside." Silence. Not a surprised silence, an understanding one. You can hear the difference. She tried to rake together a response and found too little tinder. "You don't mean that," she said finally, soft, as if lowering the volume could lower the reality. "I do," I said. "So that's it. After 8 years?" "That's it after this," I said. "After the slow drip. After the apology that never changes behavior. After the version of love where I pretend not to see you erasing me." She cleared her throat, buying seconds. "What am I supposed to do?" "Come by at noon," I said. "Pick up your things. Text first. After today, we'll keep this administrative." That's cruel. It's clear. Is there someone else? The old reflex, a grasp at an easier reason than the one I'd given. "No," I said. "There's me." Her breath hitched, and I pictured her in the driver's seat with the car idling and the world suddenly too loud. "You're making a mistake." "I already did," I said. "I made it slowly. I fixed it quickly." "Brian, don't plead a case you don't respect," I said. "It wastes both our time." I let the silence hold for 3 more seconds, then ended the call. I pulled into the driveway, set my phone on the console, and sat for a moment with the engine off, the kind of quiet that fills in after a decision stops pretending to be a question. Inside, I placed the printed pages on the island where she couldn't miss them, and went about the business of a morning that still wanted living. Laundry, a quick email to a client, a jog through the neighborhood that felt like a different neighborhood now that I wasn't rehearsing counterarguments with every step. At 11:52, her text arrived, "Here." I replied with the same word I'd been using all morning. "Okay." She came in without ceremony, eyes going straight to the box, the bag, the pages. We were past all that. She read, lifted the bag, tested the weight, and stood there as if the house might blink and return to a version she knew. "Do you want anything else?" I asked. "What would change if I said yes?" she said, the smallest smile, because she recognized the line as honest, not cruel. "Nothing that matters," I said. She nodded once. "I'll send someone for the rest." "Text first," I said. She paused at the door and took one last look, not at me, but at the room we'd made together. Table, chairs, window, the dent in the couch cushion from Sundays. If there was a speech waiting, she spared us both. The hinge whispered, and then the house and I were alone. I washed my hands, not like I was scrubbing something off, but like I was preparing to touch the next thing carefully. The one line did its work. It marked the boundary. That was the point all along. I don't need wreckage. I need respect. And if I can't have it together, I'll have it alone. The first thing I noticed after the door shut wasn't the quiet. It was the absence of the old reflex. The one that made me reach for a fix before the problem finished introducing itself. I wiped the counter, folded the dish towel, and let the house hold its shape without me bracing it. If part 3 was the line, this was the echo. Her first text landed 20 minutes after she left. I'm not proud of lying. Can we please talk this through like adults? I read it twice, breathed, and answered with the only lane we had left. Administrative only. Noon work today. Text before pickup later in the week. A minute later, you're being cruel. Then, I panicked because I didn't want to fight. The man I used to be would have filled the space with reassurances and spreadsheets of context. That man retired yesterday. By evening, the friend circuit came online. A mutual scent. She says you misunderstood. She was helping someone who's private. Give her a chance to explain? I typed one sentence and left it there. We're separating, and I wish her well. He tried to tug me into a debate. You're not even going to hear her side? But there isn't a second side to gravity. I put the phone face down and went for a slow run under a pink sky that didn't care who lied to whom. At 9:41 p.m. A voicemail. I let it record in darkness. She cried in the first 10 seconds, caught her breath in the next, and switched to the careful voice she uses when she's trying to solve me. I made a mistake. I got scared. You're throwing everything away over a story that came out wrong. The message ended with a softer sentence I'd heard in more hopeful years. Please come home. She was standing in our driveway when she said it. I heard the crickets. I didn't call back. I slept. Morning brought the kind of clarity that feels like clean glass. Coffee, laundry, a quick work ticket closed. The ordinary work of a life that didn't ask to be dramatic. At 10, Margie called. She came by, she said, voice steady, hands audible in the way silverware sounds when a person's not quite sitting still. I listened. I didn't take sides. Thank you. She's used to you catching her when she jumps, Margie said. Feels strange when the net isn't there. Strange isn't the same as wrong. I know, she said, and let out a long breath that belonged to both of us. Bring the crackers next time, and try my pie warm. I will. By afternoon, small consequences started to appear like footprints in wet concrete. A streaming password reset pinged my email, her usual move when she wants the world to go back to normal without asking. I ignored it. A gym auto draft I'd covered for years hit the card that no longer carried her name. My phone buzzed with the failed payment notice and a text from her 3 minutes later. Did you cancel things to punish me? Boundaries, I wrote back. She responded with the old thesis, repackaged. You're controlling. I didn't argue the definition. I'm not in the business of renaming weather. She arrived the next day at noon on the dot, as if punctuality could buy back truth. I met her on the porch. She reached for my arm in the way that used to melt the steel out of my spine. I let the gesture fall between us and stay there. Her eyes took a quick inventory of the living room behind me, hunting for evidence that the world was still arranged in a shape she could control. The anniversary photo was still gone. The banker's box waited by the bench. So this is real, she said. It is. We can go to counseling, she offered, barely hiding the relief in the offer. The hope that a scheduled appointment could delay the verdict. We can set rules. Weekly check-ins. No assumptions. I'll tell you where I am. Counseling helps people who are telling the truth, I said. We'd spend 12 weeks arranging chairs around a sentence you're still rewriting. Her jaw tightened. She aimed for higher ground. You humiliated me, you know that? At my mother's, making me sound like a child. I didn't say anything to your mother, I said. She beat me at rummy. That's the only thing anybody heard. She winced. I handed her the pages I'd printed, the pickup windows, the list of what was ready, the number for a storage unit if she needed it. She scanned the page, the way she scans a menu when she already knows what she'll order but wants to look like she doesn't. This is cold, she said. It's clean, I said. Evan was just a conversation. Then you can have more conversations, I said. Not here. She stood a little too straight, a posture I recognized from moments when she needed to look taller than the truth. You're going to regret not fighting for me. I regret every time I fought for a lie. Something in her eyes broke and reformed into something harder. She took the bag in the box and left without slamming. That's how you know a person is still trying to preserve a version of themselves they like. Slamming belongs to people who want to be heard. She wanted to be believed. The spin began in earnest that evening. A friend of hers posted a quote about boundaries and controlling partners with a caption full of soft focus and hard accusation. Mutuals reached out, some carefully, some clumsily. I kept the same answer ready, the one sentence that is both shield and mirror. We're separating. I wish her well. If someone pushed, I added nothing. When you're right, the fewer nouns you use, the less work you give the lie to push against. 48 hours later, the twist I'd expected arrived exactly on schedule. She texted, "You were right about some things." A minute later, he's not answering. Then, "I don't want him. I want us. Please pick up." I put the phone back on the table and went outside to cut back the shrub that always tries to swallow the path. Plants tell the truth about their intentions. It's why I like them. Margie called again that night. "She's staying at a friend's," she said. I told her to tell the truth to herself before she tries to tell it to anyone else. That's wise. She didn't like it. A pause. "I'm sorry for what you're carrying that isn't yours." Some of it was, I said. I let things float that needed weight. "You're a good man," she said. "That's not nothing." I slept well for the first time in months. The dreams weren't noble. They were boring. A grocery list, a clean spreadsheet, a game with a score that made sense. Morning came, and I adjusted the small pieces that still had my name on them, changed my emergency contact at work, updated the address for a bill she used to grab from the mail, moved 2 pairs of shoes off the mat near the door so I'd stop tripping over a version of us that didn't live here anymore. All of it told the truth in the only way truth survives, quietly, repeatedly. By the end of the week, the temperature around me changed. The handful of people who'd been coaxed into her story started to ask better questions, the kind that don't need punctuation at the end. A neighbor dropped a soft line while we both rolled trash bins to the curb. "You handled it with dignity, man." She tried one last angle the next night. Perfume I used to like, a dress that once made me lose my place in sentences, a text that said simply, "I'm outside." I met her on the porch again, the boundary that had become our whole vocabulary. She took my hand, turned it over like a card she hoped might be different on the other side. "We're better together," she said, voice smooth, script polished. "We're honest apart," I said. Her shoulders dropped. That was the end of the performance. There's no curtain call when the audience leaves mid-play. After she left, I stood in the doorway longer than I needed to, letting the night air move through the rooms. I thought of all the times I had negotiated against myself because I didn't want to be the villain in someone else's story. Consequences aren't vengeance, they're physics. She had a script. I took away the stage. With the one thing a script can't breathe without, a willing partner. The phone went dark. The house settled. Respect had a seat again. I didn't fill the silence. I honored it. Tomorrow would bring paperwork and keys and calendars, the small bricks you lay when you're building something that doesn't wobble. Tonight belonged to the simple knowledge that what broke wasn't complicated. It was just finally visible. The week after the porch conversations felt like stepping out of a crowded bar into clean winter air. The noise didn't follow me. I kept the cadence simple: coffee, work, real food, sleep. I booked a short meeting with a family attorney, not to launch a war, but to learn the routes on a map I hadn't planned to travel. We filed the basic paperwork for separation and set up a narrow channel for logistics. Administrative, like I promised. Every move small, real, and mine. At home, I took the house back from the echo. The guest room turned into a functional office. Monitor on a quiet arm. The good chair I'd been putting off buying. Cable management that would make any engineer breathe easier. I boxed what was left of her things with the same care I'd use on a client's data. Labeled, clean, retrievable. Sheets changed. Towels changed. The foyer console that had been a shrine to a happier photograph got a plant and a bowl for keys. I didn't add new noise. I subtracted what didn't serve. There's a difference between erasing and clearing space. I was clearing space. Work improved in ways no performance review knows how to measure. I stopped checking my phone in meetings for updates that arrived like weather warnings. I stopped writing calendar notes that read, "Wait for reply. Adjust life accordingly." My team noticed it before I did. One of the interns said I looked taller. I don't, obviously, but I understood what she meant. Clarity adds inches where posture had been doing the heavy lifting. Friends hovered at the edges, careful with their curiosity. I respected the ones who offered help without asking to borrow the story. One brought over a new skillet and a six-pack, then patched a wobbly gate latch while I chopped onions. Another texted a single line, "Proud of the way you handled it," and then sent me a photo of his kid's science project to pull us back into ordinary life. Ordinary is underrated. Ordinary is where respect lives when you stop performing for people who don't pay attention. As for the narrative outside my walls, it kept trying to grow without water. A mutual forwarded a screenshot of a post I didn't need to see, the kind that quotes self-help like scripture and aims it like a dart. People who want to be audiences will always find a theater. I had closed mine. She sent one letter, typed, structured, full of bullet points about transparency and couples therapy and the new agreements she was prepared to live by. It read like a corporate memo promising culture change after the CEO resigns. I read it once and set it aside. An hour later, I wrote back 3 sentences. I want good for you. I will not negotiate my self-respect. Administrative matters can continue by text. It wasn't a threat. It was a sidewalk. You can walk on it or not. The concrete doesn't take it personal. The only person I kept seeing from her side of the orbit was Margie. Thursday poker stayed Thursday poker, the world's most honest appointment. She didn't ask about her daughter the first night I returned, and I didn't offer the comfort of a tidy summary. She opened her door, pointed at the chair across from her, and said, "Cut." We played 3 hands. I won the first. She smoked me on the next 2. When I stood to leave, she tapped the chili recipe on the fridge with a wooden spoon, as if to say that the door between ordinary and extraordinary is thinner than people think. I left with $50 and a reminder that life keeps being itself no matter how dramatic the people in it try to be. There was a final test I could see coming from 2 blocks away. The soft attempt at return dressed up as closure. She texted that she'd found a therapist, that she'd ended things with Evan, that she understood now, truly understood. There was a longer message too, the kind that lands late at night and tries to borrow the darkness to hide the old logic. I miss us. I miss the way you hold the problem steady until it stops shaking. I want to come home and do the work. I don't doubt she meant parts of it. I also don't doubt the parts didn't add up to a life I'd respect. I answered the same way I'd been answering the world for weeks. I wish you well. The quiet after a choice is honest in a way the noise before never is. It isn't peace every second. Some hours you walk past a drawer and remember the way you used to set your keys down and talk without thinking, because thinking wasn't required. Some mornings you make too much coffee out of muscle memory. The difference is you're not bargaining with yourself anymore to keep a roof over something that leaks by design. I kept building small proofs. I took my brother up on a fishing trip we'd postponed 3 times for reasons that didn't exist. I replaced the porch bulb that flickered in a way I used to tolerate and now found unacceptable. I took Margie her crackers, finally, and she insisted I try the pie warm. She wasn't wrong. I kept running in the evenings, slow and steady, the way you run when you trust the route and your shoes and your lungs. It took about a month for the social temperature to equalize. People who had squinted at me like they were hunting for the villain decided to look away. A couple of them apologized without using the word, which is the best most folks can do. I accepted the weather change and didn't offer a forecast. We're all amateurs, trying to describe the sky. The house changed in ways you would only notice if you live here. The maple got a better pruning. The garage shelf no longer hosted a banker's box. That chapter had been shelved in a storage unit where it belonged. The anniversary frame found a new purpose. I put a black and white photo of the river in it, something that moves forward by design. When I walk past the console, I put my hand on that frame the way you pat a railing on a staircase you built yourself. I saw her once from a distance in the frozen aisle of a grocery store. She looked down at her cart, then up at me, then back to her cart. We both had enough self-respect to keep moving. I turned down the next aisle and picked up the coffee I actually like, not the compromise blend we used to negotiate. If there's an ending worth writing down, it's this one. Respect isn't a prize you win for endurance. It's a boundary you draw so you can keep living like yourself. I didn't return to the version of me who tolerated small fictions for the convenience of a shared calendar. I returned to the man who keeps his word, especially to himself. The last poker night before winter, Margie dealt slow, like she had all the time in the world, because she does. She asked if I'd fix the gate latch. I told her yes. She said gates are like people. You don't force them, you align them. We played until the dog snored and the coffee went cold. I left with $45 and exactly 0 unfinished sentences. On the drive home, Lexington opened up the way it does when the air is crisp and the highway lines shine like new paint. I turned into my street, parked, and stood for a minute just listening to the house breathe. The life I wanted wasn't dramatic. It was honest. It fit. And for the first time in a long time, so did I.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.